This video is going to be about comparing the Brompton Titanium to the Birdy Titanium. And I have said a lot about the Brompton Titanium. As you know, I have my criticisms about it, but there aren't that many other bikes that you can compare it to except for the Birdy Titanium equivalent, and that's what the video is going to be about. But before I continue, make sure to check out my shopping page. I have a ton of stuff there and I have new stuff coming regularly, and also make sure to check below for all of the links which I provide. As it is the case with every video, I always give you links to all of the materials that I feature in the video. So this is the Brompton Titanium. There are some different configurations of it. You could get it for a little bit less with a single speed or with 4 speeds. This one is the most expensive one, but I'm gonna compare this to the Birdy because this is the most comparable configuration. It has a pretty decent gear set in the rear. You have an external gear with sprockets and a derailleur, but there's also an internal gear set. So the Birdy is a bit different, but both bikes were designed to handle a wide variety of different situations. So they can climb, they can speed up and descend, and they do this while being pretty light, I would say. So as you know, I have my objections. I would say this design, the way they did this carbon fork, just does not go with the rest of the frame. I wish they did not make the tubing thicker. This is pretty much the same size and proportions as the original Andrew Ritchie steel frame, but a lot thicker. And I understand that titanium is a softer metal, so compared to steel, you have to thicken somewhere. But you can just increase the thickness internally and reduce the gap inside. And then there are also some details that are really not cool, like I don't know what this is. They probably used a tube and then they inserted this other piece, and you can see how it was put together. Plus the whole titanium frame is not brushed, it's not nicely detailed. The whole thing is a bit hodgepodge, but so far there aren't any complaints. People are not dying with the carbon frame breaking, so I guess it is acceptable for what you get. The weight is just under 20 pounds at this point. If you want to get a lighter weight kind of Brompton Titanium, you can, but that's going to be with either you buy the ones with a single gear or fewer gears. If you want, you can also, you have a ton of aftermarket support, so you can reduce the weight by several pounds by buying a lot of stuff from the third-party support system. Here is the Birdy variety. This is a collector's bike. According to Birdy itself, they have only made 250 of these bikes that are on the market. Supposedly, they only make them in batches every 10 years. They put some more on the market. So if you want to buy more, then you have two choices. They are made by Pacific Bicycles or Pacific Cycles. So what you can do is you can contact them. See, they are saying 250 in the world. You can contact them and see if you can sign up for the next batch. The first thing that immediately strikes you is that the finish is just so much more polished and beautiful than the Brompton. By the way, these bikes are on the market for as much as $20,000 to $28,000. But if you look carefully and look around for a long time, you might be able to get them for less than 10. Obviously, that's going to take a little bit of luck, or you can sign up with the Pacific and wait for the next batch, and then you will get them at the original retail price, whatever that is. So you see that the materials are all brushed, polished, beautifully done. It's a work of art. There is internal cabling, unlike with the Brompton that is doing the same old external cables. It's kind of a big disappointment for me that the rear suspension is done with a cheap plastic elastomer, just like with the very basic Birdy or Brompton. This is something I would upgrade right away. It just doesn't look good on an expensive bike like this one, but otherwise it's a beautiful piece, no question about it. As far as its ability for speed and climbing, you can see that there's hydraulic brakes front and rear. This is also superior to what the Brompton offers, and it has a much larger cassette than any of the Bromptons, but no hub inside. On the other hand, if you think you're not going to get enough of a gear range, the front, the chain wheel, is a dual chain wheel. Here's a better view by a different company. These are not necessarily from Pacific, but you can see what this Birdy has to offer. This Birdy has a dual chainring, and I have checked, they actually built the frames with a shifter attachment here. I think you can upgrade any of the Birdies with a dual chainring, to be honest. I think you can upgrade even a Brompton with that, but you don't have a shifter stay built into the frame, so you'll just have to mount a ring and mount it like that, but it's absolutely doable. So even though in the rear you just have a derailleur with sprockets, in the front you have two chain rings, so you should be able to climb and to accelerate as well. And so both bikes, both the Birdy and the Brompton, give you a decent gear range, so that should not be a problem. One shocker with the Birdy is that this bike is the same weight as their aluminum bike. I'm not kidding. This bike is something like 23 to 25 pounds. Of course, it's not surprising that it has a hydraulic brake set on it, dual chain rings. So of course it's not going to be all that light. With the Brompton, you have the traditional grip brakes, which are much lighter, and just a single chain ring in the front. But then they have a hub gear set in the rear. Again, the weight is just under 20 pounds, so it's not so shockingly light. And really, if you want to get a bike that has a decent gear range, you're not going to come down to a very low weight. You're not going to come down to 16 or 17 pounds unless you spend an arm and a leg upgrading it, unless you want to put another $10,000 on it. And I think people are overdoing all of this. I mean, you know, reducing a weight of a bicycle by 2 or 3 pounds, when for touring it doesn't really matter. You are going to carry a backpack or some kind of a bag anyway, loaded with at least 10 pounds of weight on it. You could lose weight yourself. It's easier to lose 2 or 3 pounds than to save up money to reduce the weight of the bike by 2 or 3 pounds. So this is definitely a work of art. The Birdy, I'm giving you the link to the video below. There are all kinds of teeny tiny details. You can see very elegant cable routing internal, then it goes outside, and there's this little piece that holds the cable in place. So it's very carefully engineered, and as the video explains, even the top tube is not really just a tube, but it is an asymmetrical grooved design, and the same is true of all other components. Unlike with the cheaper Birdy, where they sort of weld it together out of 2 pieces, this is a single bent piece of metal, which is really elegant. Is it worth $20,000? Probably not. Is it worth $7,000 or $8,000? Yeah, maybe. That will be more expensive than spending money on a Brompton. But other than this ugly elastomer, I don't see anything else that would need to be upgraded. You can attach a rack to the rear if you want to. I don't know if you can get a mud guard. For something as elegant as this one, if I wanted to get mud guards, I would have them custom made. Probably $200-300 at the most, out of some quality wood or maybe carbon fiber. And with the Brompton, you get the mud guards, but they are really pedestrian, so I would upgrade those as well. In fact, I have upgraded mud guards made of very elegantly finished carbon fiber on my nickel plated steel frame. Here is one place that's selling it. I must say these people have absolutely no talent for marketing, because he's selling this is Singapore dollars. In US dollars, you're talking about $20,000. For this kind of money, I would set up a very nice glossy website with videos and glossy images and interactivity. Apparently he has 3 pieces of this bike, all brand new, in the box, that he's selling for $20,000 each. So if you have the money, you can get them right away. It's just a question of, do you want to spend this kind of money on this kind of a bike? Here is more description on it. This bike has been going around, and there are several versions of it. The one that you're looking at, the latest one, is supposed to be generation 3, and you can easily recognize it by looking at this very thick tubing and the way they did the rear. This kind of fluid design, which is so different from the stock metal aluminum Birdy. This is the aluminum Birdy that they are selling now in the same design. You see that the top tube is not nearly as thick. Most of the rest of the design is the same, but the rear dropout is not nearly as elegant. Same thing with the front. It's not a single piece of metal. It's much more primitively done, but it's not bad. This is the Birdy I owned years ago. If you look at the details are really, really good. The fold is awkward. I would say compared to this, the Brompton is easily a much better deal. I mean, the way the Brompton folds, if you're going to be taking public transportation, it's just so much easier to do it with the Brompton. On the other hand, if you're not talking about public transit, if you're talking about just getting it into the car or into a luggage piece to take it on the plane, then you might as well get the Birdy, because there's really no advantage to the neat fold of the Brompton, as ingenious as it is. And I acknowledge that it is a genius design, but it's not always necessary. It is amazing how they did the details, and everywhere you look on this bike, the teeny tiny engineering tricks and how it's hand machined together, that's just beautiful. Now for the surface, I really think that the Brompton needs the surface to be redone. The way they did the carbon is really cheap looking. I have seen such beautiful glossy jobs. I wonder if you could just buy a couple of drill bits and maybe some compound and polish it. I would try to do that. Polish or maybe lacquer the carbon fiber. Unfortunately, you cannot upgrade the fork as much as I would like to replace it, because this attachment is not the same as the classical steel frame. So there's no third-party support for it. But I'm guessing you can definitely lacquer it. You could even paint it. You could brush the whole thing up. I mean, they must have done something. They definitely worked with some machines on this thing. And maybe you can buy a drill bit or a separate machine for a couple $100 and really polish it up to look like a Birdy. That's an idea. If you already have a titanium Brompton, that's something you might want to look at. These grips are really cheap, especially for an expensive bike like the Birdy Titanium. I would not ride anything without my air-gun grip. I have it on my scooter and I have it on my Brompton as well. And you get this nice plate in the front that says Birdy Titanium. It's a beautiful bike, sort of a very refined interpretation of the original cheapy aluminum bike. Very similar. The proportions aren't exactly the same, but the whole thing is just, it's a different experience. I guess the wheels could be upgraded to something really nice, like fat spoke that you see here and there. But then we are running into like really expensive stuff. Still, you might be able to reduce the weight a little bit. Definitely air-gun grips upgrade, a better elastomer, not an elastomer, but like a real shot designed for the Birdy, which do exist, and really nice wheels. That would really. And I should also comment on the steering column. I think it's a little short for the seat height, but the single piece steering column is the way to go. Interestingly enough, you get it on the classic, not on the modern monocoque Birdies. The monocoque Birdies have an adjustable column, which is never going to be as sturdy as a single piece. And when you ride it and it moves a little bit, it's really not a pleasant feeling. So I much prefer the single piece, and that's something you get from the Brompton as well. Just one piece like this. Here you go, very nice bike. Somehow the Brompton I would not mind having. This price in yuan, by the way, is 28,000 US dollars. So some people are crazy enough to pay for that kind of money. But then if you live in Singapore, there's probably no point in keeping a car, so you can show off by riding around on a $30,000 bicycle. And this one certainly has the looks, so it is a status symbol. Not so much the Brompton. The Brompton, I mean, the average person, if they didn't know what this was, they wouldn't even pay attention. They wouldn't even pass a second look to it. And maybe that's the purpose. If you're on the New York City subway, then you are absolutely safe, because nobody who is not familiar with the Brompton could ever tell that this is a $6,000 bicycle. Alright, this is it for the current video, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'll be back.